Today, we are going to be talking about my absolute favorite subject, all things crochet. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. It is so nice to see you. I am super excited about today because we are going to be doing one of my most favorite crafts of all time. We are going to be crocheting. Today, I'm going to be taking us back to the crochet basics. I am going to be teaching you how to crochet 4 of the most important stitches in crochet, and these are also 4 of the most basic stitches, the most important ones to learn. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I am so excited to work on this project. I have been looking forward to crocheting with y'all for a long time. So go grab your crochet hook and your favorite yarn, and let's get to crocheting. Are you guys ready to crochet? I am really excited about this. I've been looking forward to crocheting with you guys for a long time. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So let's talk supplies a little bit before we get started. For today's video, I am going to be using this Lion brand Thick and Quick, super chunky bulk weight yarn. It is a bulk weight number 6. And the reason I've chosen to use this yarn today is because I really feel when you're learning to crochet, it is a lot easier to learn with the bulkier weight yarn than it is the smaller thin yarn, because when you're first learning you can feel a little bit clumsy, and this just helps kind of eliminate some of that clumsy feeling. If you are unsure as to what size hook that you should match to the size yarn, the yarn label will always let you know right here. This one calls for a 9mm hook. For today's tutorial though, I am going to use an 8mm hook, and this is personal preference for me. I almost always size down one size when I am crocheting because I like how I get nice tighter, closer together stitches when I use just one size down. So as far as crochet hooks goes, I will leave a link in the description box for you guys for a good basic beginner set of hooks. Okay, we will also need some scissors. That's important. And we will also need a yarn needle. This is really important because at the end of a project you need to weave in your yarn, which I will show you guys at the end of our project today. So I will show you how to use this, but this is a very important supply. And for me personally, I love my felting pad and felting needle. I use this after I weave in my ends. I use this to really reinforce my project to give everything a super secure hold. This particular supply is not an absolute necessity. You don't have to have this. It's just a personal preference for me, and I will show you how I use this at the end. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So today I am going to be just teaching you guys the very basics. We are going to learn how to obviously make a foundation chain. Then I will teach you how to do a single crochet, a half double crochet, a double crochet, and a treble crochet. So we're going to learn 4 stitches today, and then after we've learned our stitches, we will work on a project together, and we'll talk patterns also in just a little bit. So for right now, let's just get started. I'm going to show you guys how to make a foundation chain. All right, the foundation chain is important because obviously that's what we're going to build our project off of, so you can't actually build anything without first starting with your foundation chain. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a slip knot, and I like to leave a pretty good tail for weaving in at the end. So I'm going to just leave myself a tail and then start my slip knot down here. So I loop my yarn over my finger like this, then kind of hold onto it with my thumb, loop over again, cross it over like so, then I kind of pull it off my thumb and I have a little hoop here. So then I'm going to take and push my yarn through the hoop to create another little hoop. So we kind of have two hoops that kind of looks like a chain, and I'm going to pull that tight. And this is a slip knot. The reason it's called a slip knot is because you can, make it bigger or tighten it up. Okay, so now we are going to create our foundation chain. And just for the purpose of today's tutorial, I'm just going to show you these stitches by just making a swatch. So I'm only going to chain 11. Okay, so we are going to yarn over. You will see that term a lot in patterns. Yarn over is a very basic, important crochet term to know. And I will also go over some basic crochet terms with y'all when we when we get ready to move on to reading patterns. So we're going to yarn over. That simply means you're just going to lay your yarn over your crochet hook like so. Then we will pull that through our first loop, and now we have 2 chains. When you're chaining, don't pull things super, super tight like this. You want to keep a nice, loose, comfortable chain. It's important to keep your tension really loose so that your project doesn't end up all wrinkled, and it'll start to curl on you if you get this too tight. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to do that one more time in slow motion. We're going to yarn over, pull through the loop. Now we have 3 chains. Okay, yarn over, pull through the loop for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, so now we have a foundation chain of 11 chains. All right, so now that we have our foundation row started, our chain row, sometimes this will be called a foundation row in patterns, and then sometimes you'll see it as just a chain row. I am going to now show you guys how to make a single crochet. So to make a single crochet, we are going to start on the second chain from the hook. This is the first chain, this is the second chain. So this stitch right here is what we're going to crochet into. So I am going to insert my hook through the top part of that chain. Then I'm going to yarn over, pull a loop through that chain, and now I have 2 loops on my hook. So I'm going to yarn over, pull through both of those loops to complete the stitch, and there we have a single crochet. Let's do that one more time together. Okay, so now this is our third chain right here. So we're going to insert the hook through the top part of that chain, yarn over, pull through that loop for 2 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through both those 2 loops to complete the stitch. So now we have 2 single crochet stitches. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys that one more time in super slow motion while I go ahead and finish this chain. Okay, so we have almost completed our first row of single crochets on this. However, we have 1 stitch left, but I wanted to talk about this last stitch a little bit because this is the stitch that people tend to miss the most. It is the most frequently missed stitching in crochet. I see it a lot with beginners. This stitch is important because if you don't crochet that stitch, you're going to have a very skewed, wonky project, and you don't want that. You want your project to have nice, straight edges like this. Okay, so another trick to keep in mind, if you're unsure if you're at the end or not, you can count your stitches. So we should actually have 10 stitches in this row because we chained 11, and that number 11 is always what's called a throwaway stitch, but it's also important so that you can end up with the correct amount of stitches on your chain. So we should have 10 stitches here. So let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we don't. So that tells us that this is actually our last stitch right here. And because this is that where we started our slip knot, it is a hard stitch to see, but it is there. And if you have to just kind of push your thumb through it, you can see that stitch. So we're going to insert the hook through the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop for 2 loops, yarn over, pull through those last 2 loops, oops, pull over through those last 2 loops to complete our single crochets. Okay, so I'm going to do 1 row of single crochets across this whole thing with you guys, and I'll just kind of stop yammering and let you just watch what I'm doing. So we're at the end of our work, so we're going to turn our work like so. And I like to keep my working yarn. That's what this is called right here. The working yarn is the yarn that is still attached to your skein, and that's called a working yarn. So I'm going to turn my work, and I like to keep my working yarn behind my project. It just keeps things nice and clean and prevents things from getting tangled. Okay, so now we're going to start our second row. And if you are unsure how to find your stitches, you can turn your work like this and see all these little V's going across here. They're kind of like a sideways V. Those are our actual stitches. So we're going to crochet into those V's. So here's my first V. That's what I'm going to crochet into. And unlike that foundation row, we're going to go into both of the V's. So you can see here underneath the V is where I'm going to insert my hook. So my hook goes under both of those V's. I'm going to insert the hook, yarn over, pull up my loop for 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both loops for a single crochet stitch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just do this slowly all the way across so that you can see how the process of completing a row looks. And I'll stop yammering and you can just listen or just watch. Okay, I said I was going to stop talking, but apparently I like to talk. So this is what we've got so far, and I just want to show you one more time how to find your stitch if you're unsure. Like if you're looking at your project this way and you're unsure where your next stitch is, you can turn it sideways, find that next empty V, which is right here, and that's our next stitch. So we're going to insert the hook through that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. Okay, now we are at our very last stitch, and you can kind of see now that we've got a row completed here that if you miss this stitch, same thing is for the beginning stitch. If you skip that first stitch, you can see how the work is going to kind of start going at a triangle like this. We don't want that, so we don't want to miss that very last stitch, which is sometimes the hardest one to see. But there's the V. So I'm going to insert my hook through that, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. And now we have completed 2 rows of single crochets. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to do a half double crochet. So these 4 stitches that I'm teaching you today are the 4 most very basic stitches used in crochet. The half double crochet and the single crochet are super common. Double crochets are common. Trebles are really common if you're doing specialty stitches, like if you're creating a cable stitch. Treble stitches aren't normally used if you're just creating like an afghan or whatnot. They're mostly used for creating special stitches like cable stitches, such as this one here. Isn't that a pretty stitch? I love this stitch so much. Okay, got a little sidetracked there, so let's begin with learning our half double crochet. So to do a half double crochet, the first thing we're going to do is find our first stitch. So I'm going to see if I can get this really close, and hopefully my camera is focused. So here's our first stitch right here. If you're unsure, turn your work like this and find that very first V from the hook, which is right here. So that's our stitch. Okay, so to do a half double crochet, we are going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. So now we have 3 loops on our hook. So to complete the stitch, we are going to yarn over and we are going to pull our yarn through all 3 of those loops for a half double crochet. Okay, let's do that one more time. So we're going to find our next stitch, which is right here, right next to it. Yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop for 3 loops on the hook, then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops for 2 half double crochets. Okay, so I'm going to show that to you guys in slow motion while I finish this row. Okay, now we are at the end of row 3 of, well, it's our first row of half double crochets, but it's row 3 in our little swatch here. So we've come to that pesky little last stitch, and it is hard to see, especially when you, it's hard to see even when you turn your work, but the V is there, it's right there. I hope you guys can see that. So that is our last stitch, and sometimes that stitch is hard, you know, it's fiddly, so I will kind of just work it with my finger a little bit. We're going to yarn over, insert our hook through that stitch, pull up a loop for 3 on the hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And there we have completed a row of half double crochets. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn our work. And remember, when you turn your work, oops, well, now I've got it all messed up because I turned it. Let me turn it back. Okay, so remember when you turn your work to keep your working yarn behind your project. And oh, I guess I should have mentioned too, holding on to the yarn is a personal preference. Everybody has their own way to hold their yarn. I tend to loop it through my pinky finger and then over the top of this finger, and this is the finger that I use to control my tension. Kind of like this, if that makes sense. However, this is a personal preference, and you kind of just have to find the most comfortable way for you personally to hold your yarn. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do one row of half double crochets together, and I'm going to try to go through this really slow so that you can see the process of doing one whole row together. So here's our first stitch. We're going to yarn over, insert our stitch, or insert our hook into the stitch, sorry, pull up 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And if you're getting your tension too tight, it will be really hard for you to pull that final closing stitch through your loop. So remember to try to keep your tension kind of nice and loose and keep it consistent all the way across. Okay, so we're about 3/4 of the way finished with this row, and I just want to touch base again with you on finding your next stitches. So when your work is laying flat on your hand like this, which is the way it will be way it will be when you're actually working a project. If you're unsure what the next stitch is, turn it up vertical like this and find your V's. So this is an empty V, which means that is our next stitch. So we're going to yarn over, insert through that stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops to complete and close the stitch. And again, these are half double crochets. Okay, we're at that very last stitch, which can be kind of fiddly to find, but don't forget it, because you can see what will happen if you do. Okay, so now we've done 2 rows of half double crochets, and you can kind of see the difference between the half double crochet and the single crochet down here. This is a little bit bulkier of a stitch, and it's a little bit taller than our single crochets. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys the double crochet, and I would say that this is the 3rd most common stitch used in crochet. So a double crochet is, we're going to find that first stitch, which is right here. We're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that stitch, then kind of, well, you're already kind of yarned over when you do that. So you're going to pull up a loop, and we have 3 loops on our hook, very similar to the half double crochet, but this time we're going to yarn over. We're only going to pull through those first 2 loops, and we have 2 loops remaining, and we're going to yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops to close our double crochet. So there's our first double crochet. All right, let's do that together one more time. We're going to find our second stitch, which is right here. Yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, pull up a loop for 3 loops on the hook, yarn over. We're only going to pull through those first 2, then yarn over and pull through the last 2 to close the stitch. And now we have our second double crochet. Okay, let's do that one more time, because this stitch can be a little bit harder than the others. I'm going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and then pull through the last 2, yarn over and pull through the last 2 to close the stitch. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys that stitch in slow motion as I finish this row. go ahead and turn our work. And we will do a row of double crochets together so that you can just watch, and I might slow it down a little bit too so that you can see this again. And we'll go ahead and do one whole row together. So we're going to find our first stitch, which is right here. Can you guys all see that? First stitch. And again, if you're unsure, you can count your stitches to make sure that you still have 10. So let's just do that really quick together. This is a good habit to get into, to just check yourself occasionally. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So good job. We still have 10 stitches, which means we haven't dropped any stitches or skipped any stitches, and that is a good thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a row of double crochets together. We're going to yarn over, insert into that first stitch, pull up a loop for 3, yarn over, pull through, whoops, don't do that. If you accidentally do what I just did, go ahead and gently pull it out. If you pull it out too far though, you'll pull out some from the row below. Okay, let's try that again. Yarn over, see, even I make mistakes. Insert our hook into the stitch, pull up a loop for 3, yarn over. Sometimes this very first stitch in a row can be a little bit fiddly. Pull it through the first 2, then we're going to yarn over and pull through those last 2. Okay, find our second stitch, yarn over, insert the hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that all the way to the end and let you guys just watch. Okay, so now we have 2 rows of double crochets. Okay, so I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to just show you guys really quickly here a treble crochet, because I don't want this video to get too long and I still want to be able to talk patterns and then start a project together. So a treble crochet is same process. We're going to find our stitch, but this time we're going to yarn over 2 times so that you kind of have 3 little yarn loops on your hook. Then we're going to insert into that first stitch, pull up a loop, and now we should have 4 loops on the stitch. So we're going to yarn over, pull through 2 of those. Now you have 3. Yarn over, pull through 2 more, and these last 2 will close the stitch. So yarn over and pull through those last 2 to pull through the last 2 to close your first treble crochet. This is also called a triple crochet, so you will see it both ways in patterns. It'll either be called a treble or a triple. Okay, so let's do that one more time together. We'll do it a couple more times together. So here's our next stitch. We're going to yarn over 2 times, insert our hook into the stitch, pull up a loop for 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And this treble crochet is a really tall stitch. Okay, we'll do one more together and then I will show you this stitch in slow motion as I complete the row. So we're going to yarn over 2 times, insert our hook into the 3rd stitch, pull up a loop for 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the remaining 2 to close the stitch. So these are what our treble crochets look like. So I'm going to show you guys that in slow motion as I complete this row. Okay, so I've come to the very last stitch in this row, which is that fun one, hard to find. So we're going to yarn over 2 times, insert our hook into the stitch, pull up a loop for 4 on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the remaining 2. And there we have a row of treble crochets. And this is a really tall stitch. You can kind of see how tall it is there. Okay, so let's recap. We have learned 4 stitches here. We have learned our single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and a treble crochet, or also known as a triple crochet. So I recommend that you guys make yourself a little swatch like this and just practice all 4 of these stitches. Even if you make like 4 or 5 of these swatches, practice, practice, practice makes perfect. So I highly suggest that you practice on swatches like this before diving into a project. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys how to cast off of your project. So you're going to want to pull up a pretty good sized loop. And then I cut my yarn because again, I like to have a good long tail. Then you're just going to put that through the loop and tie it into a little knot and pull it kind of tight. So now we have 2 tail ends, and I probably made that one a little long. Got a little crazy with that one. Oh, I apologize for all of that noise. I have my window open and that was a very loud truck, so I am so sorry for that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys really quick how to weave in your ends and finish off your project. So we're going to use our yarn hook, and I usually just kind of take my hook, bend my yarn over it, and pull it really tight, and that gives me a nice end for pushing it through. It's easier than trying to weave it through with the end like this. Okay. This is the front side of our project, by the way, and sometimes it is really hard to tell the front and the back, and it's also some projects you can clearly tell the front, like with this project, for example. This is clearly the back side, this is clearly the front side. With doing straight stitches like this, the front and the back almost look identical, but you can tell the difference if you really study your stitch closely. So this is the front side of our work. So to weave in, I'm going to flip it over, and then we are just going to kind of just weave this through some of the stitches, and I like to kind of try to keep them hidden. So I'm not going to go through like the whole loop because you kind of want this to be a little bit hidden. Now, when you're weaving in, you can either go weave in this way or you can weave in this down this way. I am going to go this way, and I will show you guys why I do this. I like to keep it on the edge in the corner of my project. So now that I've gone down a few, I'm going to go back up. And I will probably tell you that I probably weave in my ends differently than 90% of the crocheters out there. But I will show you why I do this. So now I've weaved those in, and I'm going to take and snip this pretty close to my project. Then I'm going to take my felting pad and my felting pin, and see this little piece that's sticking out. I am going to just felt that right into my yarn so that it kind of becomes one with the yarn. And this will really, really, really lock in that stitch so it cannot come unraveled. It's not going to come out. It's not going to go anywhere. But I will tell you that some crocheters don't like to do this because it does leave a little bit of a felted tip on your project. I personally don't mind that little felty tip on my project, but if that is not something that you like to do, go ahead and just weave in all the way this way and then all the way back this way, and then tie a little knot to lock in your stitch. Okay, you guys, so I know that this video is getting really, really long. I think that's why I don't do actual tutorials very often, because they do get very long. So, but I do want to go ahead and just talk patterns really quick for y'all so that you'll have a project to work on, and to get a lot of practice in. Plus, this also helps you getting comfortable reading patterns. So my first advice to you about patterns is to choose a pattern that is within your current skill set. If you try to go with a pattern that is, is outside your current skill set, you're going to end up getting frustrated and discouraged, and then you may just quit crocheting altogether. So when choosing a pattern, make sure that the pattern is at your current skill set. Most patterns will say specifically on the pattern what skill level it is. Like this one is a beginner's, this is a very beginner's pattern, and I just wrote this pattern for you guys quickly so that you could have a pattern and just kind of get comfortable reading them and following a pattern. So each pattern will also come with basic crochet terms that are used within the pattern. I did not use very many of these terms in this pattern, but I wanted you to still have the terms so that you can get used to seeing what those will look like in a pattern. This pattern is going to be available for you guys as a free printable, and I will have the link in my description box. Okay, so let's just go over this pattern super, super quickly. My other really good advice for you is when purchasing a pattern or crocheting from a pattern, don't try to read the entire pattern all the way through from beginning to end, because you will go, oh my gosh, that's just way too hard and I don't want to do it. Because patterns can be written, every single pattern creator that writes patterns writes them differently. Some are written very complicated, some are written medium complicated, and of course it also begins on the skill level. So I highly suggest that you maybe just skim it, but don't actually sit and try to read the entire pattern. Literally what I do, and I do this every single time, and I've been crocheting for most of my life. I still do this to this day. I skim like the beginning part of the pattern that tells you, what yarn to use, what millimeter hook to use, the gauge. I always look at the gauge, and then I might just read the first few rows. But I literally will sit and just start my work literally one row at a time, because patterns can be very, very overwhelming. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to do I'm going to do the foundation chain with y'all. And I'm going to do row 1 and row 2 with y'all, just to kind of get you in the habit of reading patterns and just get you started on reading the pattern. On this particular pattern, I did do a cheat gauge for you guys at the bottom, because you will notice that after row 4, it says row 5 through 40, repeat rows 3 and 4. So it's always a good idea to keep a pen or a pencil with yourself and do tick marks as you complete. So like as you complete row 5, either make a tick mark, or in this case I made a cheater tick for you at the bottom, so you can just cross each row off as you've completed it. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to do the first 3 steps of this pattern with you guys just to get you started. Okay, so the first step in our pattern, so by the way, I forgot to tell you, this pattern is for a 20 by 20 pillow cover. And what I think we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to have you guys build this, and then not next week, but the week after, we're going to come back and complete our pillow covers together. Like we'll work on, for me particular, just my personal preference, I like to back my pillow covers, my crochet pillow covers. I like to back them with a fabric of sorts. However, if you want yours to be both crochet on both front and back, you will need to make 2 of these patterns, which is also written in the pattern for you. You will need to make 2 of these so that you have front and back. But not next week, the week after, we will finish this pillow cover together, since this video is just really crazy long at this point, and I do apologize for that. I hope you guys have stuck with me to the end and that you're enjoying it and you're as excited to learn crochet as I am to be teaching it to you. Okay, so the first step on this is to chain 36. So we're going to create our slip knot, and I am going to go through this pretty fast with you guys. So just, you know, for the sake of trying to keep this video under an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this pretty quickly, but if you need to refer back to, you know, how to do a specific stitch, just go back to that particular point in the video for, as a, you know, to give yourself a refresher if you need it. Goodness, I'm so sorry. Okay, so we're going to chain 36. So I made the slip knot, and then we are just going to count our 36 chains. Okay, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And remember to keep your chain pretty loose. You want your tension pretty loose. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Okay, so now we have 36 chains in our foundation row. Okay, now our pattern says for row 1, we're going to do 1 half double crochet in second chain from hook. So remember, this is the first chain on the hook, so this one right here will be the second. And we are doing a half double crochet, so we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, pull up a loop for 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, and pull through all through loops. Then you need to find your second chain, which is right here, this one right here. Yarn over, insert, and remember we're just crocheting into the top part of the chain. So pull up our loop for 3, yarn over, and pull through all through loops to close our half double crochet. Okay, so I will do one more with you, and then I will complete this row off camera. Okay, so here's our third stitch. So we're going to yarn over, insert the hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops to close our half double crochet. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and crochet to the end of this, and I will meet you guys back at our last stitch. Okay, so I have completed 34 of the 35 stitches, but I wanted to do that last one with you because I know I keep harping on this, but that last stitch it's a tricky one. So we are at our last stitch, which is right here. Don't skip that stitch. We're going to yarn over, insert through the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And we have completed our first row. Something else I wanted to mention to you guys too is if you are not using the same size yarn and hook that I am using, your gauge might be a little bit different because this gauge is, first of all, this is 20 inches long. So yours should be 20 inches long this way, but then height-wise, it should equal 2 inches. And I forgot to put that this is 20 inches long in the gauge listed there. I apologize for that. But if you're using a different size hook or a different size yarn, just after you've made your foundation row, just measure it to your pillow insert to make sure that, you know, it's the correct length for your pillow insert. Because for one thing, you know, stitches, we're all going to crochet, you know, at a different stitch tightness. That could affect the gauge a little bit too. So you may have to just alternate, or you may have to make some alterations in your pattern depending again on what size yarn you end up using. But if you're using the exact same yarn and the exact same crochet hook that I am, your gauge should be pretty much right on with this pattern. Okay, so we are going to turn our work, and then row 2 says 1 double crochet in each stitch across for 35 stitches. Something else I forgot to mention, at the end of your first row, I would definitely count your stitches to make sure that you have 35 of them, because you don't want your pattern to be off, because it'll could mess up your whole gauge and the whole size. Plus it'll make your crochet wonky. So count your stitches, just kind of check yourself and get in the habit of counting your stitches. Okay, so row 2 is simply just 1 double crochet in each stitch across. So here's our first stitch. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, pull up a loop for 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, then yarn over and pull through the last 2. Okay, so our second stitch is right here. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2 to close our double crochet. Okay, so here's our third stitch right here, right there. Insert our hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this row off camera, and I will see you guys back at the end. All right, so I have almost completed row 2 of our double crochets, but I thought I would do the last 3 stitches with y'all. So we've got 1, 2, 3 stitches left. So this would, see, 35, so 35, 34. So this would be number 33. Oh yeah, I'm really good with numbers. All right, so we're going to yarn over, insert into that stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then here's our next stitch. And that fun little last stitch right here. So yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Okay, so we have successfully completed rows 1 and 2. And something that I like to do is, after I've done a step, I kind of like to check it off. We've checked off row 1 and we've checked off row 2. And that way, if I have to set my work down for any length of time, I can come back to it and know exactly where I am in the pattern. So that's just one little trick. Okay, so I do want to show you guys really quickly how to, because if you run out of yarn on your skein, I want to show you really quickly how to connect the yarn pieces back together so that you can continue crocheting. Okay, I just want to show you guys how to add yarn to your project, because you know you're going to be crocheting and you're going to run out of yarn and you're going to need to tie more on. So what you do not want to do is just take the 2 yarns and tie them together in a big knot for 2 reasons. Number 1, you'll have a big ugly bulky knot in the middle of your project, and number 2, that knot could actually come undone. Like if it's a project that you're going to wash, it could come undone in the washing machine and then you will have an unraveled mess on your hand. So the best way to tie your project is to take your 2 ends. So this will be your project yarn and this is your working yarn. So you're just going to take one end of this, wrap it around that end and tie that in a knot. Okay, then you're going to take your working yarn, wrap it around your project yarn, and tie that in a knot. So now you have something that looks like this. And then you're just going to take those two ends and pull them together, and they will come together and form a knot that is really strong. It's really tight, and that will not come out, and your projects will wash up really well with no fear of them coming undone. Then you can just snip off these little tail ends. And you don't have a very bulky knot at all that will be in your project. So that is how to hook your two pieces of yarn together when you run out of yarn in the middle of a project. Okay, y'all, so I've gone ahead and crocheted rows 3 and 4 just so you can kind of see what the pattern is going to start looking like. It's just an alternating between one row is half double crochet, one row is double, one row is half, and one row is double. And this is what it's going to look like. It just creates this really pretty textured pattern going all the way up. So I just kind of wanted to show you what it was going to look like beyond, you know, the first 2 rows that we worked together earlier. So y'all go ahead and finish this on your own, and if you want, feel free to tag me over on Instagram so I can see your progress. That would be so much fun. So you guys go ahead and get to finish this, and then we will come back together and I will show you in the next video how to complete our pillows so that they are actually a pillow. Thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate you so much, just taking time out of your day to hang out with me. I really enjoyed working on these crochet projects together. It was fun, and I hope that y'all were able to take something away from this and that you learned some fun things about crochet, and that you are going to enjoy crocheting. It's going to be a lot of fun to finish up our project in a couple of weeks, because next week we're actually going to pause from crocheting and jump into some fun Valentine's projects. But then the week after that, we will be back to finish up the project that we started today. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Until then, y'all take care, and I will see you soon. Bye.